Hello all, my name is Erta the Wanderer, and I've come out of the jungle today to talk with one of our greatest generals, the Great Lizard Wizard. How are we doing, Wizard?
I'm well. How are you today?
So far, so good. Finally able to get more troops on the table, now that things are starting to loosen up.
Nice. I still haven't got an in-person game yet. Uh, just because I work in retail, and so I figured I've actually been face to face with everyone in my area.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a bunch of people in the club that are on furlough and have been quarantined and stuff. So I'm letting them do the club thing, and I'll do it later.
That seems fair. Let everyone have fun. Well, today we're going to take a break from list building in order to talk generally about what we'll find in our opponents on the table. And this week we're going to start off with our ancient enemy, the Skaven.
Vile rats,
Ha!
and my
Vile
second
rat
favorite
men's.
army.
They're also one of the armies that, just like us, is the worst treated models wise by GW.
Yep. But they did get a Bombardier Warlock, so that was something.
Oh, yeah, they got a new model, which granted is more
It's
than we
better
got.
than us.
Uh,
Ugh.
oh well. Well, so you are a pilot of this army, and you've often seen them in tournaments.
Mhm.
Are they still like one of the top three armies in the game?
I wouldn't say top three. I think they're like so S tier being like the god tier has shot at 5-0 at events.
Mm-hmm.
And then A tier being right below that. I would say they're bottom of A tier, top of B tier, somewhere in there.
Really?
Like they're still really good, really dangerous. But they're not the army that I have to build around in order to do well.
Mm. Is that just because some of the broken stuff came out?
Yeah, it's in part because the Plague Monk nerf that did a lot. Like they're still plenty scary, um, but I think the other big factor is magic creep. Um, Skaven, their dirtiest versions rely on double stacking Death Frenzy and Dreaded Death Frenzy.
Mm-hmm.
And those go off on a 7, and they only get a +1 if they're near their gnar hole. And we have really easy access to +2 to unbinding.
True.
Um, so
So is it
that
more?
magic creep has helped.
Yeah. Is it more that just against us they're not as strong as they were, or is it just in general?
It's also OBR. Like because of Plague Monks getting nerfed, they have a really hard time now chewing through the Mortek guard, which I think is part of why Plague Monks got nerfed. If I'm being honest, like the brand new shiny army came out that was supposed to be unkillable,
And they
and then
didn't want to
Plague
just wipe
Monks
them
could
off the
just
table.
delete. Yeah, exactly, exactly. Um, because they didn't get nerfed until then, and they had been that good for forever. Um, so that's my sneaky suspicion.
Huh.
Um,
Knowing
so
GW,
the Plague
probably.
Monk nerf made them less scary. They're still really capable. They've still got all the tech they need to do well. They can definitely go 5-0 at events, but they're not meta defining. Like you don't have to necessarily build your list around them. You can generally build your play style around them.
Okay. And yeah, they still, everything in their army is still super cheap.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's one of the most point efficient armies. The only thing that's expensive is their battalion taxes. Like they've got some pretty steep battalion taxes that make some of their battalions straight up not worth bringing. Like in a
Mm,
similar vein to Seraphon.
right. But do they have to bring them like we do?
No, but I think everyone wants them because you want to be low drop. Especially when you're a brittle army like us or Skaven or Daughters of Cain. Um, where we become a lot more durable if we've got a like a turn to prep. If we get alpha strike or if we get hit really hard with alpha strike, um, whatever the enemy decides to kill, they're going to kill, and then we just have to respond afterwards.
Right.
Skaven's very much in that same boat. Um,
But with
like
more
they can
guys?
make, yeah, with way more guys. Um, yeah.
Fair enough. So, what do you think is the general most common lists currently that are getting thrown around?
Yeah, so there's two lists that I would say are serious lists.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's just because they're Skaven, there's a lot of weird, wacky fun lists
Right.
that are still capable, and you want to have a game plan against, but they're just less scary.
Right, because it's
So
a legacy army. A lot of people
yeah,
have their. It's a huge range,
yeah,
and a lot of people just like the stuff like hell fiends and the big doom wheels.
yeah, and rat ogres and all. Like there's so much stuff in that army. Um, it's massive, and I'm really glad they brought it all together in a single book again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the two serious armies, uh, the first one is combat, and the second one is shooting. And combat has two major variations. Um, the first is basically just all plague monks. It's normally got a congregation of filth, which makes you bring a plague furnace and 2 units of plague monks. Um, and you'll sometimes see two of that. That's pretty rare though.
For those who
And then
don't
it's
know,
just
what does Congregation of Filth do?
yeah, congregation of filth. The plague monks get a 6+ save after save against wounds and mortal wounds when they are close to their plague furnace. Um, so it actually makes them shockingly durable against no rend attacks and that kind of a thing.
Right.
Because a 6+ is actually it'll reduce damage.
It essentially
Um,
is a +2 to save.
yeah, yeah. Uh,
And because there's so many of them, the wounds you have to chew through with that is pretty impressive.
yep. So you'll see that, and then sometimes instead of it being a congregation of filth and then more plague monks, it'll be like a congregation of filth with a screaming bell. Both versions will frequently run a unkillable vermin lord warlock seer, which
Mm.
is a combination of artifacts, so that it has a 5+, 5+, 5+,
Which
with a
is
4+ before it, and yeah,
yeah, which is mathematically impossible to kill in a game.
yeah, it's something I think I did whenever I see them on the table, I just don't attack them. But at an event I was at, I remember someone who went with me to that event complaining that they dealt 132 damage to a vermin warlord seer with that setup, and they only actually took off 2 wounds from it over the
Yep.
course of the game.
They're as durable as our Bastildons, but without the downsides.
Yeah, but at the same time, like a lot of times you can kill them. You just have to put a ton into them. Like there are armies who can kill them.
Right.
Um,
And oftentimes the damage is better used elsewhere.
Yeah, exactly. I just always ignore them. But you'll see that sometimes you'll see the Vermin Lord Corruptor instead because people like to give him the Sword of Judgment because he has a bunch of attacks on his daggers and he'll just rip through heroes sometimes.
Like it's 8
Um,
attacks on them, isn't it?
I gotta double check and pull it up.
Might be.
Corruptor. It is 10 attacks with his
Oh.
Reaper Blades.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and it's 3s and 3s, rend 1/1 damage.
But you're
So
not
it's
doing that
like
for that. You're trying to get
yeah,
2 judgment blows.
yeah, you're trying to get 1 to 2 judgment blows. So you'll see that, and his spells really good as well. He's got Dreaded Plague, which is you pick a unit within 13. It's cast on a 7. Then you roll 1 dice for each model in the unit, and for each plus that unit takes a mortal wound.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good spell. You'll see him sometimes, or you'll see the Warp Seer because they want Death Frenzy and Dreaded Death Frenzy, and they're the same thing, and they stack. And it's
2
whenever
attacks after death.
yeah. So when a plague monk dies or a clan rat or whatever you put it on, they fight twice. It's insane.
And that's a
Um,
thing across all Skaven heroes. They are incredibly hard to kill.
yeah, they're shockingly durable because of their command trait for scurry away, and they get lookout sir in combat.
In melee,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
So they're
so
always -1 to be hit.
yeah, as long as like they haven't lost all their minions or misplayed.
And by that
Um,
point, it's too late anyway.
yeah, frequently. So you'll see that, and those are the two major variation of combat. It's almost always heavy plague monk because they're just better stat lined than
Right.
clan rats.
And
But you'll also see clan rats.
yeah, it's
Um,
weird. Clan rats and storm vermin, is that what they're
mhm.
called? Both of those
Yeah,
are really good as well. They're just
they
not
are.
as good.
And there's even a battalion for them that's pretty good. The Skitter Claw, whatever, that has a Claw Lord, and it lets the Claw Lord affect everyone who's near him for +1 attack. Like they're good. They're just not as good as Plague Monks.
Right.
Uh,
Because yes, storm vermin are better than our warriors and way better than our guard for elite infantry, and no one
yeah,
takes
and
them
they're
because plague monks are better.
yep, yep. Uh, and then you'll see some version of a shooting list. A lot of times it'll have the battalion, who I want to say is called like a Spark Vault, Vaultic or something. It's Spark Vault something. It's the one that has 3 Warp Lightning cannons, or 1 to 3 Warp Lightning cannons, and then a Warp Lock Engineer or Bombardier, one or the other.
The
Um,
warp cob convocation.
the Warp Cog Convocation is a battalion of battalions.
Oh, so it's
This
one of
is the
those useless ones.
Yeah, yeah. This is I think it's the only battalion that doesn't make you take Storm Fiends if you want to play Scryer or whatever. Um, and it just lets them choose one of their cannons and lower the power dice by 1. So it's super awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and if you don't know how the Warp Lightning cannons work, they have a number of attacks. It's either 6 or 12, depending on if you want to more power.
Which you
Uh,
always do.
and yeah, and before you roll the attack sequence, you roll a power dice. Um, and whatever that is, when you roll your dice, you don't roll to hit or wound. As long as you roll above the power dice, uh, equal to or above the power dice, you deal a mortal wound to the target. Um, so it's potentially 12 mortal wounds if you're more warp powering.
Mm. It's very
Um,
swingy, but also really solid.
yeah, yeah. And those are frequently all things you want in a shooting army anyway. So most of the variations will include that, unless it's just pure Giselle spam, which is also a variation of that same
Yeah.
shooting army.
For all those out there who are getting bombarded by complaints about salamanders, point at Giselles. They have always been better, and they're just as cheap.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and there's even the rattling gun. Like you can build rattling guns with a specific general trait and other stuff, and you can get them to 4d6 shots that are 2 damage
And
at
re-rolling
rend 1
hits.
and re-rolling hits. Yeah. Um, and so yeah, they're also better than salamanders. Um,
Yep. So, yeah, I think we're just the new kid on the block, and the new kid always gets picked on.
yeah, and we're cool. Like if we're being honest, people would have been playing Seraphon in a much higher quantity if we were just a little bit better previously anyways.
Yep, to go on a tangent, that's kind of being proven right now. The fact that everything in our army is out of stock and has been
Yep,
for weeks.
yep.
Uh,
And yeah.
Even without the current situation, that is unprecedented. The only other
Yeah.
time that's happened is with like really unpopular armies that don't get restocked ever. So
Yeah, yeah.
so even if GW massively underestimated how much people wanted to play Seraphon, which they kind of did, the fact that
Mhm.
everything is continually out of order is really good for us.
Yeah, I'm a little bit sad because I know I'm going to see a lot of mirror matches. Like it's just going to happen. And those are okay, but they're not my favorite. It's part of why I chose Seraphon, because no one played Seraphon, so I was like, I'll never have to play a mirror match.
Hmm.
Because those tend to feel pretty dicey. Like as long as your opponent isn't um, significantly worse or better than you.
Right.
Uh, but aside from that, back to Skaven.
What do you think
Uh,
makes the shooting armies so powerful? Is it just the Nahals mixed with really solid shooting?
So it's a couple things. It's really, frankly, meta dependent. Beforehand, I definitely favored the combat army, but if I were trying to 5-0 an event with Skaven now, I'd probably take the shooting army because shooting has gotten just better across the board in meta.
Right.
Um, OBR doesn't get their Mortec Guard shield reroll against shooting attacks, so that makes shooting good.
And its
Um,
big its crawlers
mhm.
and its harvesters can be taken out quick.
Exactly. Yep. You can get rid of those Galthazar harvesters. And you can get rid of the Mortek crawler catapults. So it just they're a great matchup against Osaric Bone Reapers. Zinch is really vulnerable to shooting
Right.
because now all of a sudden they don't get their loci of change where they're -1 to hit. They've got a 5+ save, and all your shooting's got rend 1, so that's a huge throughput. They're just in general brittle, and you don't really care about the duplicitous host if they can't get in combat with you because you're shooting them.
Right. They
Um,
can't catch you. Well, if they catch the shooting guy, it's not going to try and retreat because it's already dead.
yeah, yeah.
And with the flamers, they really need their exalted flamers around.
Yeah, and you can just pick those off. You can pick off all those demon heroes for the loci, for their spells. And the second you start reducing Zinch spell output, they really start to crumble.
Hmm.
Um,
And you won't, but if you do go first, you can take the Gaunt Summoners out before they bring on more Pink Horrors.
yep. Yeah.
It's a nice
Uh,
thought, but it's never going to happen.
yeah, pretty much. Excuse me. And then the other thing that I think also helps them a lot in the meta is Warp Lightning Vortex. If
Uh,
you're playing Skaven and you're not taking Warp Lightning Vortex, start taking Warp Lightning Vortex and you'll double your wins.
if you're taking
Uh,
Boat Dwarves and aren't taking Warp Lightning Vortex,
yes,
start
lightning in a
taking
bottle.
Warping. But
You
yeah,
need that spell in a bottle. Um,
it's just
yeah,
that good.
yeah.
It's a
So
huge area of effect, and it does. It's not even the damage that hurts so much as the speed
it's the
cut.
movement. Yeah.
Cutting all
Um,
movement in half is what makes STDs so good, and Skaven just plop.
yep. And so then they also do well against other like top A tier armies like Fire Slayers because they can shoot off those heroes with enough damage to chew through the Auric Guard
Hmm.
and still kill the hero. Um,
And those dwarves are now moving 2 inches a turn.
yeah, they're moving much slower. They're not nearly as high of a save. Maybe you killed off their support hero and they're back to a 5+ or
If
six
you
plus
want to, you
save.
can just swamp them in bodies.
Yeah, exactly. So the shooting Skaven list, I think, is probably the one you'll see most often now. If someone's like looking for their counter meta 5-0 list.
So just a bunch of clan rats with the main shooting core.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not clan rats. Like sometimes people will take the Carrick acolytes, or not Carrick acolytes, the
Yeah, if you're
Scryer
made out of
acolytes.
monies. If you're
Yeah,
made out of money.
yeah, yeah. And you, because they're what?
There used to be a hero model, so they're eight. You buy them by the model at hero prices, and they're metal.
Yeah, and you get like a weird quantity. It's like you don't know which one it's going to be, and they're web store exclusive.
Mm.
So you could order 10 of them, and then they're all 10 the exact same variation of that model. Um,
Which isn't the end of the world, but it feels bad, especially for hobbyists.
yeah, exactly. Um, but you'll still see them. I see them at events every now and then.
Mm.
Um, I don't own any.
For the above
But
mentioned
yeah,
reasons.
yeah, yep.
Do you think that?
Uh,
Yeah. Do you think Skaven have any bad matchups? Like not just not as good as others, but solid counters in the meta at the moment.
so I actually think KO is a lot scarier than people are giving them credit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think KO has a decent matchup against Skaven for the combat list. Um, I the shooting is really going to come down to how well the Skaven player zones, because a lot of KO's shooting is too short range.
Yeah.
Um,
I
so
mean,
K,
that's the main reason everyone was so harsh on KO. It's
Mhm.
it's a very counterintuitive book, and it seems like it keeps uh, keeping you away from the fun parts.
Yeah. But if you just take thunders with rifles and put them in your boats, like that's a lot of good shooting
Mm.
at 18 inches or better.
Just beware
So
melee lists.
yeah, so KO shooting can be effective against both versions of Skaven, I think. Um, Zinch is always a threat, even
Because
though
it's
Skaven
Zinch.
has, yeah, because it's Zinch. Even though Skaven has a pretty decent matchup, I think Seraphon make for a decent gatekeep to Skaven though. Um,
Because
like
we
I,
aren't a
I
hard
think,
counter, but if you don't if you don't have your game plan together, we can really do some damage.
Yep. Yeah, I think Seraphon has everything they need, and it's not out dropping doesn't matter for either army. It's really going to come down to how you play the battle plan. Um, so if I'm playing Skaven and I see a Seraphon player across the table from me, that's a game that I know I'm going to have to put a lot of effort into.
Which I'm not
Potentially,
giving GW credit for, but the fact that it rolled out that these two ancient enemies are really solid matches for each other is really cool.
yeah, that's a neat little bonus. Um, and then Cities of Sigmar is a
Uh,
rough army for Skaven. Like the
because
teleporting castle of Iron Drakes,
yep,
that's rough to deal
they
with.
do the shooting list but better.
Yeah.
Mm,
However, the combat list, I
uh,
think, has a better matchup against the Cities of Sigmar.
oh,
Yeah, because they're gonna do a ton of damage, but you've got Congregation of Filth, so you've got the 6-up save after save.
right.
Um, you're also they're gonna have to kill both blobs, like fully kill both blobs, because if one blob makes it there, it's deleting uh, one of those blocks, and then if you double turn, you're deleting the other block.
Mm.
Um,
We'll probably be getting into cities in a future video,
yeah,
because we started out with Skaven because you know them so well, and I'm very, very solid on the cities side of things. And I think that City's melee army has a good chance against Skaven's melee army.
yeah, the
The
great sword hammer, that kind of
the
stuff, or which
hammers and
side?
Phoenix Guard.
Oh yeah, Phoenix Guard. Jeez.
Want to
Yeah.
talk about unkillable doom monsters?
Yep. Eternal Guard are also way better than a lot of people think they are.
They are, but they're
Um,
so hard to play.
yes. Yeah.
That's a story for another time.
You're so table dependent. But anyways, I think those are the ones that Skaven has a harder time against. They have a really good matchup though against Osark Bone Reapers and against Fire Slayers, and they've got a game against Disciples of Tzeentch. Like I
Mm-hmm.
would say, it's probably going to come down to the player more than anything for those. Maybe some dice. Um,
Is there any
yeah,
real big weaknesses that we can exploit to the army?
yeah. They're really bad at dealing with pressure from multiple ends.
Because
Um,
they play Doomstar?
yeah, and because they buff up the one unit or they buff up the one shooting. Like they have to be very focused in the task they want to accomplish.
Hmm,
And
that sounds
even though they
familiar.
have even though they have good movement, um, they're hordes. So correcting your movement isn't necessarily easy. Like when you're moving 40 corn rat or clan rats one direction, and all of a sudden it becomes apparent that you need to go the other direction, it's going to take you a little bit of time to write it,
Hmm,
just because of the size of that unit. And it's a lot easier to string them out and give them bad pile-ins and some other stuff.
right.
So if you can put pressure on multiple points of their army, a lot of times you can start to break them apart.
Fair enough. Uh, on Lustria, you've had a thread for a while that was key units of interest.
Yeah, priority targets.
Yep. What would be the main priority targets that you want to go after in the Skaven army?
Yeah. So in addition to Skaven being prone to multiple points of pressure, they have a horrible bravery.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but this is counteracted by two of their behemoth units, the Screaming Bell and the Plague Furnace. It gives them bravery immunity within something crazy like 26 inches or 24 inches. It's been too long since I actually looked at it. I don't play these guys too
It would
much.
be twice 13 because everything in that army is 13.
Yep,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah. So
26.
let's say 26. It's probably 26, which is massive, like just huge. And most of their units have a bravery of 4. Uh, so if you can kill those, it makes it all of a sudden real easy to start chipping away and crumbling their other units.
That said,
Because
those guys aren't monsters, so they get lookout, sir.
yeah, they get lookout, sir. Um, they have a 5+ save after save because they have protection of the Great Horn Rat.
Mm-hmm.
They've got decent wound counts. Like the Plague Furnace has Where did it go? Come back. "13 wounds. Yep.
Yep.
And then the Screaming Bell has the same. Um, Screaming Bell is also a level 2 warlock, which is crazy.
Because it has a
And
Gracier on it, the
yep,
cheapest, most efficient caster in the game.
yeah, they're so good. And he gets a better version of his spell, and yeah, they're just good. Um,
They're buff wagons, they're massive debuff wagons, they're really hard to kill.
yeah, and the Gracier has a chance to once per game on 2d6 roll a 12 and summon a Vermin Lord for free. Um,
Oh, yeah.
so you want to kill their death carts as soon as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Which we didn't used to be able to do because, well, we didn't used to be able to do a lot of stuff.
yeah, we didn't have the shooting we needed, and they're always going to be surrounded by bodies.
They
So
have to be
even
to
if you can
move,
get
so
something, yeah, even if you can get something in combat, it's like a Ripperdactyl. It was never enough to actually be able to kill him in combat while the monks were still up. So those are the first priorities. I'll actually start this with sort of an overview of the disclaimer that I had to the entirety of the list. When you're choosing priority targets, the priority kill list isn't necessarily the order you will kill things in.
mm-hmm.
It's just the order that's most important to the enemy, because you always want to do what's accomplishable,
Right.
um, and you don't want to waste a turn. So if it's going to take you 2 turns to kill the Plague Furnace, or 1 turn to kill 2 Grey and a Warlock, you're way better off killing those 2 Grey and a Warlock,
Right. It's like going
even if
after
they're
our
lower down that
Slan.
list.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
going after
exactly.
our Slan. They are easily the most important unit to our lists, but we've usually got them behind a big block of something guarded by 5 guard.
Hmm.
If we can, they're in cover or in the temple.
Yeah, or in cover on a Bellwind with cogs and the 2 pre-rolling. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
we can make them hard to kill. Um,
So they could go after, and I remember you saying that sometimes you, when you've got the invincible build up, that you bait them so people go after
oh
them.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Um,
yeah, you're right. Just because it's the most important unit to the enemy army doesn't mean that's what you're going after now.
yeah. But if they give you the opportunity, or if you do the math hammer, or if you're feeling lucky, or if you're like, oh, I have to do this if I want to win because my opponent's better than me, like whatever decision you've decided, the first thing you want off the table, if you can do it, are those Screaming Bells and the Plague Furnaces.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then after that, it's the Plague Monks. You want them gone as soon as possible. Like if you can kill them outside of combat, kill them with spells, kill them with shooting, you 100% want to do that.
Yep, and we've
Um,
got a proper horde breaker now that we can cast reliably, so
mm-hmm. Yep. Uh,
you can do some
and same for
major damage.
debuffs. Like Plague Monks should be your primary target for throwing debuffs onto. Um,
Like Geminids and Great Tide.
Geminids, Starlight, the Prophecy where you reduce their save by 1, like all of that stuff. Um, they should be the main target of your debuffs. Um,
Right.
Even if like you have damaging spells, it's worth throwing the damaging spells at them.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Because even though you know, want to know what's kind of sad?
mm,
The plague carts and the doom bells are actually better in melee than our carnosaurs are.
yeah, yeah, they are scary. Like 3d6 on the Rusty Will attacks. Their bell and or furnace is always pretty decent. Um,
Yeah. But if you take out their honor guard, they can't move, and so they become a stationary terrain piece.
yeah, that's either slinging spells or throwing out prayers or something else.
Mm-hmm.
Like
So,
they're normally still worth killing, but sometimes you don't have to. Like if they're
right.
not scoring an objective, who cares?
And like you said above, if you can't kill them in 1 turn, but you can kill the rats moving them in 1 turn,
Mhm.
then it's worth it to do that, just to make sure
Yeah,
that they can't affect the table they normally can.
yeah, and it's kind of weird. They're really similar to Daughters of Cain.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like they're basically the glass hammer of Daughters of Cain, and Daughters of Cain is a bit more hammer than glass. Um,
Mm-hmm. They are
Yeah,
very
so
durable in Hagnar.
yeah, they're shockingly durable. Like they're still quite killable. Like they're
That's
more
still
durable than you
a
think they're going to
five
be,
five
but
five
they're
save is not easy to get through.
it's true. But they're one wound and mortal wounds, and like there's ways to kill them.
Right. There's
Um,
ways to kill everything.
yeah. Um, but plague monks do more damage. Like you can buff the damage higher on plague monks. You can buff the survivability higher on witch elves. Um, but either way, like because plague monks are such a glass hammer, they're the next main thing you want off the table. The only reason the plague furnace and screaming bells in front of them is because if you can get rid of that and hit the plague monks hard, then you can battle shock them off the table.
Right.
Uh, you want to get rid of that battle shock as soon as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
And when they can't buff the plague priests anymore, their main scary twice after death thing is gone.
yeah, yeah. As soon as they lose the Grey Seer and the Warp Lord, now all of a sudden they're not fighting twice upon death, and they're way less scary. You can deal with them in combat.
Mm. My guess for targets in the shooting list would be to camp the warp knotholes and hit engineers.
Yeah, and their weapon teams. Weapon teams are super brittle. Like either
Mm-hmm.
the rattling cannons, the warp fire throwers, the Giselles. If you can reach them, even with shooting, which the Giselles have a 4+ instead of a 6+ against. Like if you can hit those targets, you can kill them.
Mm.
Um, like I remember even with like old 10-man units of skinks, it wasn't uncommon to pluck 1 or 2 wounds off of them. So if you have like all 3 of your 10-man units of skinks, you could kill a Giselle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, just because
And
they're yeah.
now we have a good chance of just clearing the board with them.
Yeah, exactly. Like we'll the shooting army we have a pretty good matchup against, just because most of our stuff can weather the single round of shooting,
Mm-hmm.
and then they weather us a lot less well.
And we have teleports to go after them.
Yep. Yeah, yeah. If you're playing the
Yeah.
Starborn or the Skink side, yeah.
Their shooting army is unsurprisingly brittle,
hmm
and unlike a lot of other um, big shooting lists out there, they have a much harder time both projecting power and defending themselves.
Yep.
Yeah.
But then after weapon teams, for both armies, the next thing you want to go after is those support heroes, the Grey Seer, the Plague Monk on foot, um, the
Mm.
Warlocks, the Arc Warlocks, the Claw Lords, like whatever their small support heroes are. Those are the very next thing you want to kill.
Yeah,
Um,
because very much like us, they are a very hero dependent army.
yep, yeah, they need their command abilities, they need their hero spells, they need their prayers. Taking those out is next. And then I focus on Vermin Lord Corruptors. Actually any of the other Vermin Lords, so long as it's not a Vermin Lord Warpseer with a suspicious orb. Um, the next priority is Vermin Lords.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And
and
if it is that one build, it's just a model. Throw stuff at
mhm.
him, pin him down. He can
And
teleport, but he's just a
yeah,
guy.
a common tactic you'll actually see that's really fun to do, and still you can catch a lot of people off guard with if you're playing Skaven. There's a spell called Skitter Leap, which lets you. It's Lords of Space and Time for a hero. Uh,
Right.
Goes off on a 7. Has all the same restrictions. So people used to Skitter Leap, um, like a Vermin Lord Corruptor up or something else, and either cast Warp Lightning Vortex if they're wanting to play that way, or they're casting the Dreaded Plague, where they're dealing mortal wounds on a 4 up.
Oh
And then they
yeah.
would, in the movement phase, use the Gnaw Hole to jump back to safety. Um,
Or just tank it.
yeah, or just tank it. So sometimes, if people weren't using the Gnaw Hole to jump back to safety, which is where I was going the first thing you end up killing is their Vermin Lord. Because it's right out there front and center. It did what it was supposed to do. They got their value out of it, but it's what like you're just gonna kill it. Um,
Yeah.
like
It not only popped out there and hit you with the worst thing in the game, but it now is going to waste an entire turn of you just trying to kill one model.
yep, yeah. So a lot of games will actually uh, develop with you killing their Vermin Lord before you kill anything else because of that. Some people suicide their Vermin Lords. If they're smart though, They'll normally try and jump back through a null hole, but sometimes the thing they really want to kill, if you've positioned correctly, they can't range in a null hole and still do it. And yeah, so vermin lords are frequently the next thing you'll kill, and then it's just whatever. Like after that, it doesn't matter. Warp lightning cannons, um, the other heroes, storm fiends, doom wills, whatever they brought,
Mm-hmm.
um, and just clean up.
So what in our army do you think
Mhm.
would be a good, like, if you had to build towards taking on a Skaven army, how would you build a seraphon list?
Oh, Fangs of Sotek.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just because the retreat alone, uh, gives you a 50% chance of hard countering the combat army, um,
Mm. Right.
and still doing a ton of damage. Like even if you don't do it, you've still really hurt them. Like a blob of plague monks that gets shot by a buffed up unit of skinks,
Is
you're
losing
gonna half
13 of
that
them.
unit or more. Um, yeah, like you're gonna decimate them. Uh, and
Ah,
then
the
if another
trials of
unit
low
tries to
saves.
charge it, you've got a good shot at also really hurting that unit.
Mm.
Um, so it has a good matchup against that, and then it also has a good matchup against enemy shooting because we have the reach and we have the mobility to stay safely away from their shooting, buff our thing, teleport it, and shoot the thing they didn't want us to.
So definitely coalesced.
Or Starborn.
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah,
definitely
yeah,
Starborn.
like yeah, Lords of Space and Time is big enough that I think Starborn's worth it. And even if I were playing Saurus, I would still play Starborn Starhost.
That's what I'm planning to
Um,
do.
but I might go battalionless with it. Like I like Dracothian's Tell. I think it offers a lot of good things,
Mm-hmm.
but I'd almost rather having two artifacts of my choice versus taking the God Beast artifact. Um, I think both are good. Like I don't think either's a trap. But some of the list I've been playing around for Sunclaw Starhost, I've actually been running just Starborn without one of the sub factions.
Huh. Fair enough.
But yeah, I definitely think in general Starborn are better than Coalesced. Um,
In just yeah, specifically Coalesce can jump higher, but
yeah.
yeah, but when you go to a tournament, you don't know who you're up against, so you want a broad, general
hmm
army that can
The
take
only
on all
matchup
comers.
that I feel better with Coalesced in is Disciples of Zinch. Um, I feel
Mm.
like Coalesced is more comfortable to play against them than trying to play Starborn because Starborn, if you have a bold opponent who knows what they're doing and gets lucky, they can pretty much win turn one, um, against Starborn. Like they can just kill everything you cared about,
Right.
or trap you, like one or the other. Um, so in that sense, Coalesce maybe could be more viable for tournament if Disciples of Zinch keeps rolling the day. Um, but yeah, definitely against Skaven, Starborn I think is way better.
Fair enough. And hmm, I'm going to be perfectly honest. I don't think salamanders are particularly helpful against Skaven.
No, mostly we over rend. Like we don't need two rend versus Skaven.
Right.
And we don't generally need the mortal wounds versus Skaven. The mortal wounds are just as likely to do as much damage to a Skaven unit as the not mortal wound of the attack, for the salamanders.
Hmm.
So there's
And
frankly, if you wanted an artillery piece, you'd actually be better off with Razor Dons against Skaven.
right, because they can shoot when they're charged.
Yeah, and they shoot volume.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, that volume gets way more mileage when you're dealing with a 6+ save or a no save, depending on how close they
Right.
are.
And as much yeah, and despite what everyone keeps saying, I don't think salamanders do enough damage against a Skaven list.
Yeah, they're just going to get swarmed and killed.
Right.
Like
Which is what you
six plague monks make
expect,
it
but
to you, and
yeah.
they're going to kill the unit. um, yeah.
Yeah, which is what you expect because
Mhm.
I'm going to be perfectly honest, I never expect my salamanders to live through the game.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Um,
they don't seem to be able to trade up very well with Skaven. Their heroes are too hard to kill, even with salamanders being good hero poppers. And they just have too many, too cheap bodies for salamanders to do any good.
Yeah, and I mean, 12 range is still makes salamanders way more viable than 6 inches. Um,
8, but yeah, they
oh
were
yeah, yeah,
they were
but then
just
up to
1 inch
12 if they
short.
had.
They
Yeah, that's
that's
right.
why it was
That's
so
right.
frustrating.
And you had to, yeah, handlers and all of that. But it's still not enough against Skaven because they can make 12-inch buffers real easy with the volume of bodies they have.
Mm.
Um, so if like your opponent misdeploys and they let you get within 12 inches of their furnace or their screaming bell, yeah, you'll get some good damage out of
You'll
salamanders. You
take a
might
chunk
actually be
out
able
of
to
them.
kill it. Yeah. If you're not going to kill it, you're at least going to drastically reduce its move characteristic,
Yeah,
which is huge.
you're not going to
Um,
kill it with just 3 salamanders. You'd have to go all in just to kill that one unit.
yeah, you'd need to drop multiple salamanders up there to do it. But if you have like 2 units of salamanders and they let you do it, if you're not going to kill it, you're at least going to drastically reduce its movement speed, which will slow down that whole wing of their army.
Hmm.
Because they can't leave it behind; they need to bring it with them.
Right.
Uh,
So if you did bring salamanders and you end up
mhm.
fighting a Skaven, they have a job, but I don't
Oh
think
yeah,
there's our preferred choice. What I do think
yeah,
is really good against Skaven, for pretty obvious reason, is Croxagore.
yes, yes, yes.
Oh,
They're amazing against Skaven.
target-rich environment, and those moonhammers are just going to wreck face.
Hmm. Bastillodons are also good against Skaven
At least the
if you're
melee
trying
army.
to pop. Yeah, the melee, or if you're trying to pop their vermin lords because they have the demon keyword. Um,
Oh,
so
I didn't know
Bastillodons
that.
are, yeah, yeah, Bastillodons are okay for that.
Yeah,
Um,
against the melee army, I like them because that doesn't have the mortals or the rend to get through them.
yes, so you can just
Against the
hunker
shooting
down and
army,
trap them.
they're even more sad.
Yeah, and if you're playing against like the Plague Monk army and you have a Bastillodon, um, as long as you don't think you're going to kill a bunch of their Plague Monks in combat and potentially pop mortal wounds on yourself,
Hmm.
you should charge it into combat because the Plague Monk player is probably going to have to retreat because they don't want to spend 2 turns, 3 turns fighting it.
Right.
Um,
I don't
and so
think they
you're
can do anything against a properly buffed Bastildon.
they might have the weight of attacks.
I mean, yes.
Yeah, 180. They'll do 3 damage to it if all 40 can get in range
Yeah, yeah,
and everything rolls average and you have the re-rolling and all of that stuff. Yeah,
yeah. That's if it has shield up, right?
yeah. If it has yeah.
If not, it just
Uh,
dies.
yeah, if not, it just dies. So yeah, Bastillodons aren't bad against the Skaven matchup if it's the combat version. But Kroxagar are crazy good. If your opponent lets you live the dream, you could also do really well with a Stegodon Flamer. But it's going to take a
A dumb
bad,
opponent or a lucky you.
yeah, it's going to take a bad Skaven player in order to really get more value out of those points on the Stegodon than you would get out of just Skinks.
Mm.
Um,
And maybe if it was defending a point and you had a skink screen up, you could use it. But yeah.
yeah, yep. But it has the potential. It could wipe a unit of Plague Monks or Clan Rats
Mm.
if everything lined up.
Yeah, but that's a stars aligning that requires magic to do, and we can't do that anymore.
Yeah. But more on the line of specific, like you have brought whatever army you've brought, and you're playing against Skaven. Your first thing that you should be looking to do uh, is use Croak, use your Comet's Call, start plucking down those wounds on their heroes.
Hmm.
Um, that's one of the major advantages we have against them. Their heroes are also brittle. We can always range them. Uh, and we'll kill them in 2 or 3 turns.
Yeah, if you're up against the shooting list, Comet's probably solid against Jezzails as well.
Yep, Yeah.
And their knotholes count as terrain. So if you manage to get into the temple, I know it's not common, but if you do, then those warp holes
Yeah, you can
start
target
being
them.
a major downside instead of a positive.
Yeah, and all of a sudden those warlocks they put around it for +1 to casting are second guessing their life choices.
Well, yeah, and they can't move after they go through them. So when whatever
Yep.
teleports in orders to shoot, it gets to shoot, and then you just hit it.
Yeah, and then you mortal wound it. Yep.
Maybe.
Um, yeah, provided you roll a 4 up or a 2 up or a 6 up, depending, and all sorts of other stuff. Yeah. Um, so yeah, we have really good reach. That's where I would focus your spells, even more so than like target buffing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
don't don't worry about giving your skinks +1. Instead, give them -1. Making a 6 up save a no save is massive. Um,
Unless you're an
like
actually, because you get rend 1.
that's true. Yeah. So definitely focus on the offense versus Skaven. Like, don't try and out defense them. Their damage is too high for that.
Mm.
Um,
And yeah,
take advantage of their brittle nature.
alrighty. Is there anything else you think we should cover?
No, I think that's the main things for like understanding and planning around Skaven matchups.
Alrighty.
There is a weird list that is 12 Storm Fiends, um,
Oh,
and that kill the Warlocks first. They have a warp powder duster. Their heroes buff them.
yeah,
So
the
kill those
engineers.
heroes. Yeah, the engineers. So kill those engineers ASAP, and then start on the Storm Fiends. Like, those engineers will drop real quick. You may or may not do the 6 or more damage you need to kill off a Storm Fiend. Um,
And even if you do, they've got their melee bruisers taking the damage first, so it doesn't make
yeah,
them
they're going to
weaker.
kill off whatever one they care about the least.
Yeah,
Um,
it takes 18 damage to start hurting their ranged potential.
yeah, exactly. It's crazy. Um, so yeah, that will pop up occasionally. It's a weird, wacky, fun list. Like, no one's bringing it expecting to go 5-0, but you'll still occasionally see it. And if you see it, kill the heroes first.
Other
Um,
common for fun lists are probably Doom Wheels.
yeah, you'll see like the Doom Wheel spam, or Doom Wheels and Storm Fiends, or like you'll still occasionally see the Night Runners or Clan Molder spam. Oh, Clan Molder is actually good. They have crazy recursion, like better than Legions of Nagash recursion.
Oh,
They can keep their giant rats and rat swarms on the table. It's really hard to get rid of them. So if for whatever reason you're faced, they can't kill anything. So if you're facing Clan Molder, um, kill off their various molders, their minor heroes,
hmm
and kill their Hell Pit Abominations ASAP. If a Hell Pit Abomination makes it to a unit of skinks, those skinks are dead.
yeah. Hellpits are really solid. It's just another instance of everything else in Skaven being better.
Yep,
I don't think Skaven really has a bad unit. They have most, well,
Night Runners.
yeah,
The Clan Eshin stuff's bad, but
yeah,
that's it. Everything else is good.
or at least not just okay.
Yeah. Or it was a minimum good when the book came out.
hmm
So yeah, it's not a bad starting point.
Fair enough. We'll be doing this in the future, probably getting to all the armies eventually. Cities or Zinch's probably next.
Yep. And when we finally get back, I've been super busy in real life, so we had to put stuff off, and we didn't make it to the episode we had planned. But once things come down, we'll also go back to the episode and take a more in-depth and specific look at Seraphon list building.
Yep, we'll
Uh,
bring our major lists and run through them and explain why we plan to do what we do.
yep.
Alrighty. Well, if that's
As
all,
always, if you have questions, post them, send them.
either on Lustria or in the comments, we're willing to help you out.
Yep.
But thank you for talking with me today, Wizard, and you
Yeah.
all
Thank
have a
you.
wonderful night.
Likewise.